What a day today. What a day today is. It's very, kind of wild, man. Honestly, kind of wild. Like, I don't know what to make of this. So I've reset my internet connection now. Because I started doing a little bit of digging and they were like, it's probably not OBS, which is the studio I use, and it's probably not YouTube itself. It's probably something in between, and the only thing that's in between is the internet provider. So, reset the internet, which I should have, in retrospect, I should have done right off the hop. So this stream's a bit of a faff today, honestly, bit of a faff today.
Gotta sleep another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tied before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold. That human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway.
I'm just looking at this thing, man. Like that little box down in the bottom right-hand corner. It's like green, yellow, red, red, green, blue, red, 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 green. We'll see, man. We'll see. I'm turning this into a walk-around stream. That's what I'm doing, cause like, I can't like get any momentum. Right? I can't get any momentum, so I'm just gonna fuck around, play some songs, do what I want. I know, buddy. I know. I'm playing music and talking to myself. My little pug down here. I hope you guys are doing really well out there. Hope you guys are seeing, you know, It takes perseverance. And chances are good it's something really dumb. Like, chances are good that it's like at my IP's like distribution network, there's probably like somebody fucking around with something or like doing something, and they're like, oh, it shouldn't matter, and it's like completely mattering, right? Like, and it's like I always say when it comes to this technology, when it comes to all this kind of stuff, there's like there's layers upon layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, and anything goes wrong at any level, then it can cascade outward and cause all kinds of interesting and strange problems. So we're all doing our best. We're all trying our best. I'm starting to think that I should try doing like multiple platform streaming. I've been avoiding it, but like I could be streaming this simultaneously on like YouTube and Twitch, right? Like, and you could also like simultaneously stream even on Facebook, which I don't really like streaming on Facebook because I don't like Facebook, but I don't know. Sort of think to myself, like, why am I limiting myself just exclusively to YouTube, right? Like, it's something that I did initially because it was easy. I figured it out, and I just kind of wanted to do it. But now I'm kind of thinking, like, why don't I expand that? Why don't I... Because there's other programs that you can get to... Like, this program only will stream to one site at a time, but there's other programs that will... programs by the same kind of stuff. Yeah, it keeps dropping. I don't know what to do. I've reset everything. I've reset my whole thing. I've even looked around trying to find a resolution, and it honestly just is like this is the response I'm getting. It's just, what are you going to do? Like, well, what am I going to do? You know? Like, just goes to show you how fragile this whole thing actually is, right? Just goes to show you how fragile this whole thing is. And all I can do is keep trying. That's it. That's all I can do is keep trying. Got my little puppy down here, so I'm petting my puppy. Yeah, today's stream is going to be a complete faff. Honestly, it's going to be a complete faff because like I'm going to continuously keep dropping out. I've got frames dropping. Like down here, you can see frames dropped 16%. Like that shouldn't be like that, right? And it seems like the stream goes for about 15 minutes. There are 4 5G wireless providers in Canada. China just achieved 6G. Yeah, China's like way ahead of us. Like way ahead of us. Like that, and we haven't even started. Like that's the thing that I'm really trying to drill into people's heads. Like us Westerners. Like China is already ahead of us, and we're not even trying. Like we're not even started to compete. Like we're not even beginning the process. Like China has built like high-speed rail throughout its whole grinning guys, good to see you, bud. You're posting on our anti-work today. Good stuff, bud. Good stuff. Let him have it. Let him have it. Well, hopefully this will be stable now. I don't know. I'm getting some drop frames. I'm getting some stuff, but there we go. Red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow. Oh, it won't be too much longer. Won't be too much longer. Okay, guys, if I drop out this time, I'm calling it a night. I think that this is a larger issue, an issue I don't have control of, and I don't think there's anything I can do. So if I drop out again, that's it. I'm not going to even try. I'm just going to move on, hope that it resolves itself at the server issue, because I think that's what's happening. Like, I think at this point I can pretty successfully say it's a server issue. Like, it's not OBS. It's not YouTube, right? It's not. So it's gotta be my internet service provider. And I've even done like a couple of connections, and like I'm getting some feedback that's like, yeah, something's going on at the server level. So I can't control that, which means unfortunately that the show is a complete faff. Yeah, and we're waging war against China. Yeah, it's the stupidest thing we can do. Yeah. Like, what can we do to these guys at this point? Like, we can't actually launch conventional warfare. Like, we can't actually engage them in conventional warfare. Like, the best that we can do, there is a strategy, incidentally. Like, there's a fellow by the name of Brzezinski throughout America, that The Chessboard is his book. And his entire theory is that, okay, yeah, we can't engage China in conventional warfare. Like, we can't go in there and get, like, troops and all that kind of stuff and start, like, a conventional war because of, like, nukes, right? And, like, China has access to, like, hypersonic missiles and all this kind of stuff, which means that if we start to go to conventional war with them, they can, like, drop nukes on Los Angeles. Like, they can drop nukes, like, all of these places, right? The U.S. can, like, not really. Like, not really. They can get their boats in there and try to, like, do blockades and stuff. But China doesn't give a shit. Like, China runs those blockades. Like, China moves through. Like, they know the Americans aren't going to, like, lob missiles at them and shit. Like, they know. And they're not willing to get pushed around, right? Like, China doesn't acknowledge the supremacy of America. Like, they don't act that way. And so the strategy of Brzezinski is to make sure that this region is in total chaos, right? Like, that's part of the reason they go into Iraq and Afghanistan and destroy this. It's part of the reason you have these things happening in Kazakhstan, right? Part of the reason is make sure that this region is in chaos so that Russia and China can't actually get organized in it, right? That if you can't launch conventional war against China, well, at least you can prevent their growth, right? Which is disgusting, if you ask me. Like, totally disgusting. We're literally destroying cultures and destroying entire peoples so that China can't trade with them and, like, organize with them or get anything done. Like, it's gross. It's gross on every single level. And you listen to the people talking about this, and they all talk like this, and very much like, oh, it's an interesting geopolitical scientific, and these guys are like fucking psychos, like, and they don't really realize that they've become psychotic, you know? Like, I think that's a big thing. It's like these guys talk as if they are the most reasonable people in the room, and they've, like, lost the thread of what it is to be a basic human, you know? Yep, on Monday, Nicaragua just signed a Silk Road Treaty Pact with China. No details were given. Yeah, they don't want to give, like, too much information to the Americans, right? Because they know the Americans, like, the Americans are going to do everything they can to try to destroy all of this, right? I keep saying over and over again, like, I don't understand how Cuba has not yet been invaded. Like, it's one of those things I'm, like, constantly thinking to myself, like, why don't the Americans just bomb the shit out of this place and, like, go into it? Like, I don't, like, what's preventing them, right? Like, they've made it very clear that they don't give a shit. And, like, the only thing that I can really see why they don't do it is because it's not really valuable, right? It's not like there's a big mountain of oil or something sitting in Cuba, you know? So, like, they're fine with letting Cuba sort of wallow the way it does. Can Canadians defect? I mean, you can stop supporting liberals and conservatives. Like, start supporting people and start supporting organizations that are strictly anti-imperialist. But, like, that's the best you can do. Like, you can't. This is why I say we need to surround the halls of power. Like, and there are huge segments of the populace who have just, like, swallowed whole, like, the white supremacist narratives of North America. Speaking of psychotic, not Laws 2. I don't think I've ever seen you around, bud. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hope you're here to contribute. I've been experiencing a lot of drops today on today's stream, so this is the longest I've gone with it being stabilized. I shouldn't say that out loud, especially as this is happening, and I've got a frame rate drop of like 17%. But again, I'll restate it. If this stream drops today, guys, I'm done for the night. So we'll it is a server issue at this point. Like, there's literally nothing I can do about it. Weren't the British the ones who destroyed the India's textile industry, so they would have to buy British products? Same tactics. Yeah, the U.S. allows prosperity for just a few and profits from suffering. Exactly. No, that's who they are, right? And that's been their entire history. Well, do you want to come up, buddy? Do you want to come up? Is that what you want? You want to come up? You want to come up? And the issue is, just like I was talking about earlier with Disney, right? How the reason why they can just keep producing schlock, right? Just absolute crap, that absolutely destroys their own IPs and all of this, is because people keep paying for it, right? And in very much the same way, right, the reason why America can just destroy countries and destroy other peoples and do all of this kind of stuff is because people keep voting for it, right? Like, we just keep voting for these guys. Over and over again, we just keep voting for them. Like, think about someone like Joe Biden, for God's sakes. Like, Joe Biden's entire career has been one of betrayal and abandonment of the populace. Like, that is what he has dedicated himself to doing. Like, he's explicitly said so on the floor of Congress. We have videos of him saying it, right? Like, and we just keep voting for it, right? We Disney is EA confirmed. And like, but we don't have any and we're constantly just given this I am capitalism. Really? You are capitalism? Wow. I'm impressed. And the options that we're given, right? Like, it's literally now in America, it's a choice between outright overt fascism, right? Like, I'm going to destroy this place, versus just like corporate status quoism, right? And like, either way, the powerful win, right? They're happy to destroy you. Like, if Donald Trump gets in and starts destroying the civil society, the psychopaths that run the nation will be like, oh no, that'll be it, right? Like, they don't genuinely care, right? Oh yeah, I know, my little guy. I know. Oh my goodness. Weird stream today. Here's another one that comes from the Discord. This is a remarkable series of admissions by BC Supreme Court Justice Kent that the Crown's radical underlying title to Indigenous land is simply a legal fiction to justify the de facto seizure and control of the land and resources formerly owned by Indigenous peoples. In the very same paragraph in which the Supreme Court of Canada in Tilishquanin denied application of the doctrine of terra nullius in Canada, the court simply restated, at the time of assertion of European sovereignty, the Crown acquired radical or underlying title in all the land in the province. Title, however, was burdened by the pre-existing legal rights of Aboriginal people, who occupied and used the land prior to European arrival. The Aboriginal interest in land that burdens the Crown's underlying title is an independent legal interest, which gives rise to a fiduciary duty on the part of the Crown. Kent J's decision in Thomas and Seku's First Nation versus Rio Tinto Alca Inc. is a remarkable consideration of UNDRIP colonialism, the discovery doctrine, and the questionable legitimacy of the Crown's assertion of sovereignty. Here are a few outtakes. Straight up, like, the Supreme Court of Canada, like, and the courts in Canada are over and over and over and over again restating what we know to be true, that, like, this is First Nations land and we stole it, right? And we stole it by basically saying we're the good guys. And it's like, is there actually a legal basis for any of this? Dude, peanut butter. Whoa. Oh, wow, you didn't grumble. Oh, there's the grumble. There's the grumble. And even though the courts, and even though everybody is telling the corporate sector and the political class, hey, this land is First Nations land, right? We don't actually have a claim to it, right? They're moving through and destroying it and seizing it anyway, right? Because that's who they are. That's a great shot of him, isn't it? Isn't he such a little cutie? He's my little cutie pie. Oh, yes, I know my little pugger pants. Yes, I know my little pugger pants. Oh my goodness, how's this going? Frame rate's dropping. Hey, we've made it 20 minutes without the thing dropping. That's good. That's good. Maybe they resolved the server issues on their end. Oh my god. So thank you for sharing. I think was that Pissed Off Canadian? I forget who shared this, but it's thank you so much for sharing this on the Discord. I'm trying to do better at sharing what you guys are sharing on the Discord. Sometimes people put up just like literally cop beats up guy, and I'm just like, oh my god, yet another one of these. But like, yeah, a private corporation prosecution targeting Indigenous activists is taking root in Canada, based on the same Chevron model used to detain me in the US for 2 years. The oil industry attack campaign is spreading. CN Rail wins right to privately prosecute Northern BC Rail blockade participants. Like, this is outrageous, is what it is. And it is, but it does go to show you how desperate and how scared the fossil fuel industry has become. That they are going on the offensive, that they are working to destroy anyone who is even legitimately going against them. Like, if you don't know this fellow, Stephen Donziger, his story is that he was fighting against Chevron in Ecuador, right? Like, Chevron was literally enslaving people in Ecuador, right? Like, it's like, and it's a black and white kind of a case. And Stephen Donziger got I believe it was the largest settlement in the fossil fuel industry's history for the Ecuadorian people, and then for his efforts, the court system here in the United States basically turned against him. An overt and obviously corrupt judge, without precedent whatsoever, sentenced him to 2 years in prison, right? I know. Haven't railways always had private police? I mean, the police can be rented by private people, so that is, yes. Like, that's always been the case. Like, when I found that out like 15 years ago, I was like, are you serious? Like, the Bank of Canada, for example, can literally just like rent cops. So if they have a problem, they can just like rent cops and use them as security guards. Like, it's pretty brutal, in fact. Pretty brutal, in fact. Canada's small business lobby is working to cut wages and government benefits. Like, we know. I'm not going to read this out because, like, we know. You know? Yeah, throughout the pandemic, income supports, specifically the CERB, became key for workers seeking to make ends meet and avoid getting sick during insecure times. Can I rent one? Yeah, you can, Major. Like, you can rent a cop. Like, in keeping with its long history of attacking employment insurance, the CIFB didn't take long to find an enemy in CERB too. As early as April, when fears about the virus had somewhat allayed, CFIB began regularly peddling horror stories of teenagers living lavishly, luxuriating in clover on income supports that worked out to roughly $12.50 an hour. The lobby also badgered the federal government to reform the program, to force workers back into the labor market. The CFIB even accused the CERB of funding summer break for hospitality workers. I gotta be honest, like, this is the horror story. The horror story is that people might live well. Like, that's the horror story that we're being told exists. Oh, I can't exploit these people and their lives are better. Right? Like, it's almost as though the system of capital can be destroyed easily. You can easily destroy the system of capital, right? By simply giving an alternative model. And the government can do that, right? The state can provide an alternative model, right? Like, when I was growing up, I always would say to people, like literally I'm 14, and I would just say to people, like, hey, why don't we, like, just, if we're not going to nationalize things, like, why don't we let the government create something to compete with? And the response from the capitalists was always, oh, well, you will just destroy competition because we can't compete with the government. And I always, like, scratched my head and went, like, well, doesn't that mean that your model doesn't work? Like, doesn't that mean you have a less efficient model? Like, if the government can erect a model that is superior, so superior that you simply can't compete with it, doesn't that mean that it's more stable and it's better? Like, what's the argument here? Right? And they just admit it. They just straight up are like, and they admit it based on this idea that, like, yeah, competition breeds innovation. It certainly doesn't create central antagonisms that collapse the entire model. Yeah, if lawyers defending you cannot defend themselves for the oligarchy, how do you expect to defend yourself from them? Yeah, and it's the same story with, like, Julian Assange, right? Like, do you think the journalists in America, like, every journalist in America is looking at Julian Assange and being like, okay, yep, like, we know what's up, right? Like, that's why journalism is dead in America. It's why actual journalists need to, like, retreat to RT television and stuff like this, because they know what happens to them, right? Like, Julian Assange, literally all he did and all he was responsible for was publishing leaks, right? Like, he didn't even provide the leaks. He's not even the whistleblower, right? Like, he's the journalist that published the leaks. And look what they're doing to him, right? And look what they're going to continue to do to him. Because, and this is absolutely a form of terrorism that is being inflicted against journalists throughout America. And with the explicit statement, if you report these kinds of leaks, like if you report leaks about America's war crimes, for which there are many, right? We're going to go after you, right? You want down, buddy? You want down? Okay. Down you go. And so it's steadily becoming just like, yeah, if you fight against Chevron, if you fight against the oligarch, if you fight against the psychopath class, we're going to get you, right? We're going to get you. And someone like Steven Dongzinger is paying for it, right? Like, what's happened to him is like the height of illegitimacy. Like, if you need any evidence whatsoever that there is no legal system in America, right? You're looking right at it with him. Like, literally, he was correct. Everything he argued, what he was correct. He followed the law, and but even if he put forward the case and was wrong, and it like got shut down, and they went like, no, it doesn't quite work out, all that kind of stuff. Well, like, so, like, what is this? This is like some fucking like snake culture where like if you argue on the wrong side of something, you deserve to be punished, and like his crime is basically nothing. Right, like he's essentially being found guilty of fighting against Chevron. It's brutal, like it's absolutely brutal what's happening to him, and we're all just supposed to like accept it. I actually really this is a huge article, so I'm not going to read it aloud, but like let's see their conclusion. Of course, one shouldn't expect an organization like the CFIB to change their position in the face of evidence or opposition, especially if such arguments might advance the cause of workers. The CFIB exists to do a job, and they do it dutifully. In fact, the lobby's opposition to material improvement for workers makes them an increasingly vulnerable opponent. Its recent bellyaching about a whopping 10% minimum wage hike in Ontario left it looking exactly like the regressive, close-fisted entity it is. For the CFIB, maximizing profits for small business comes first. The lobby can be counted on to ignore all moral or empirical evidence that undermines its aims. Yeah. Like, that's capitalism, baby. Like, they don't care about facts. Like, they don't care about any of that. Like, for example, right? For example, we know for a fact, we've done the studies, we've seen it. A 4-day work week increases productivity. Like, that's just a fact. If you give people a 4-day work week, productivity increases. That's literally a facts don't care about your feelings statement. Is there any business in America or Canada that is doing a 4-day work week? Why not? Because it's not about productivity, right? It's not about that. It's about asserting dominance. It's about ensuring that the working class can never organize itself. It's about ensuring that they're too tired and too exhausted, right? And that's what they're trading. So, oh, sure, so we have a dip in overall productivity, but our slaves are exhausted, right? Which is the point. I think one of the circles of hell is capitalism. I mean, this country has a real, like, the good place feel about it. if you don't know, like, spoiler alert on the show The Good Place, right? The Good Place is a television show where a woman dies and it finds herself in the good place, but then comes to realize that she's there on accident, right? That she's there by a clerical error, and so she's constantly trying to hide this fact and trying to make it so that nobody else realizes it. And then steadily over time, she realizes that this is, in fact, not the good place. This is the bad place. And that they are putting her in this position of constantly, like, seeing the wonders around her that she can't interact with, and constantly filling her with anxiety and dread and exhausting her in this attempt to hide what she believes to be the reality of the situation. But it's all just a game being played on her by these demons who run this hell dimension, right? Like, that's the whole the good place, like, crescendo. And, like, these capitalist societies have a very similar sort of a thing going on, where they present themselves as being like these glittering, holy kind of places, but then everybody is filled with such dread and depression and anxiety and fear constantly that they can't actually engage or enjoy the promises of, like, the good place. And so, like, yeah, we are in one of the circles of hell, for sure. And, like, the concern is, are we going to descend further, right? Like, people will point out, like, well, things are better than they've ever been. It's like, yeah, but, like, it's all well and good to say things are better than they've ever been. But if we're going into a decline for descending, right, we should be concerned about that. Yeah, greed. Capitalism is extremely utopian too, right? Greed will feed the world. Profit drives innovation. You have to be kidding me. Yeah, no, it's mythical, right? They believe in magic, right? Stuff like meritocracy, for example. This is a real good opportunity for me to talk about.
So I told you guys on this.
I'm not going to actually show this clip, but Jordan Peterson on Kyle Kalinske and Friends, right? This clip basically is Kyle Kalinske saying that Jordan Peterson dodged him, right? That he was scheduled to come on the show to speak with Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball, and at the last minute basically stepped out. Peterson is somewhat famous for doing this. He had a debate lined up against Richard Wolff that he ducked, that kind of thing, right? Like, Peterson isn't actually interested in having a conversation with credible, well-educated people, right? Like, he really isn't. He will constantly duck those people. He'll have a conversation with people like Zizek, who's, like, you know, kind of an oddball, fringy guy, right? Or like Russell Peters, or not Russell Brand rather, right? He'll have a conversation with, like, Russell Brand or something, but, like, he's not actually going to sit down and have a meaningful conversation with somebody who's actually going to challenge him in interesting or meaningful ways, right? Like, he'll debate some, like, third string writer of a not very well known publication, but he's not going to go like he'll never talk to an actual communist. Like, he'll never actually talk to anybody who's actually a Marxist-Leninist, right? Like, who's actually going to point out the incoherencies of his ideology, because Peterson's ideology is incoherent. There's a reason why one of the major critiques people peg of Peterson is that he seems elusive. Like, when you seem to start to get him, and people keep saying, like, oh, you're misunderstanding him, or you got to read this other thing, or you got to do this kind of thing. And it's like, well, okay, part of being an intellectual, part of being willing to actually engage in, like, philosophy and all of this, is to have clearly stated positions, right? And the fact that Peterson sort of refuses to actually clearly articulate his positions, it isn't for lack of trying. I do think that Peterson actually tries. It's just that he's incoherent, right? Like, his ideology itself is incoherent, right? And the reason why he struggles to articulate his own points isn't because the points are big and elusive and, oh, it's a difficult, complex subject matter. It's because his ideology is incoherent, right? Like Peterson's ideology is that the individual needs to empower themselves, right? You need to author your own destiny. You need to clean your room, right? Stand up straight with your shoulders back, like this sort of stuff, which, like, there's nothing fundamentally incorrect about that until it becomes fundamentalist, right? Like, it's fine to say to someone, like, you have control of your own life, right? You're the one that needs to make decisions for yourself in your own life. Clean up your room, right? Take responsibility for yourself. Like, all of that is fine. But if you believe that that's all there is, and if that is all you're willing to focus on, right, it becomes incoherent. Because fundamentally what you are saying is that the power of a single individual is greater than the power of every other individual in the society. That's what he is saying. And so it's incoherent, right? And because he's never actually experienced the antagonisms that exist in the society, right? Because he's in a position of extraordinary privilege, right? Because he's never actually experienced and doesn't articulate the reality of the antagonisms that exist within his own society, he's completely incoherent, which is why he struggles, because he needs to find reasons for why things are as they are. And so instead of focusing on reality, which is that there is a structural antagonism that exists within the society, he finds absurdisms and ends up in ridiculous places, and he's just incoherent, right? And this is the reason why he can't actually debate leftists and communists, right? That's the reason he can't debate people on the left, is because he relies on that incoherence. And as his incoherence is becoming more obvious to people on the left is finding sharper and sharper ways to critique him, and finding easier ways to critique him. Like, I believe that my critique of Peterson is the final critique. He's incoherent, right? That the power of a single individual cannot overwhelm or supersede the power of every other individual in the society. And all you have to do to buy into Peterson is to ignore the structural reality of what it is in the society. That there is a capitalist class and a working class, and these two forces are antagonistic to one another. Like, and in my view, someone like Peterson, like, it really shows you how bereft of spiritual and existential contemplation we are, right? Because that's really Peterson's claim to fame, is this, like, let's think about what it is to be a human. It's like, okay, let's do that. But we don't in this society. So someone like Peterson comes along who thinks that he has a hold of something, and people are willing to take him seriously because he's existing in a vacuum, right? But when you actually listen to what he's saying, he's incoherent. Like, it literally doesn't make sense what he's saying. Like, it makes sense to a degree. Like, if all he was a cheerleader, if all he was just a guy who was like, yeah, try your hardest, stand up straight with your shoulders back, you have control of your own fate, right? Work hard. And then if he went on and said, like, and yeah, there's like there are antagonizing forces in the society, and that's just an unfortunate reality of what it is to be in the society, but that doesn't mean you should stop trying to do your best, right? Then I would be like, oh yeah, straight up, like, respectable. But that's not what he says, right? He genuinely believes that if you fail, it's your fault, right? And it's like, that's completely incoherent. Like, that's like blaming somebody who gets abandoned in the middle of the ocean for drowning. It's like, no, bro. Like, there are big, high-scale circumstances that supersede this idea of the power of the individual. And what's scary about Peterson's incoherence is that if you buy into the individualist fundamentalism that he presents, well then, it refuses to acknowledge the existence of systems. This is the reason why Peterson struggles so hard with the idea of systemic racism, or the idea of, like, systemic problems, because he's an individualist fundamentalist, right? So if you're a fundamentalist in an individualist kind of a way, then you can't pay attention to systems because systems themselves belie the reality of the power of the individual, right? That if you believe that it's all up to a single individual to do whatever it is in their life, then, well, okay, but here's like a systemic institution, right? Don't you think that has something to do with it? Oh, well, no, that institution is made up of individuals. It's like, yeah, individuals who pass laws that then carry through in a system, right? And if you deny the existence of systems in the first place, right, then you can never actually have a conversation about how to reform those systems. So in a way, it's a complete defense, right? It's a perfect defense of the status quo. Never address the systemic issues, because if you never address them, and if you pretend like they don't exist, then you don't need to reform them, ever, right? Everything is all just about individuals changing their individual behavior, right? And it's like, but that's literally not how the society is structured, right? You take a look at something like the Indian Act, something that is completely non-controversial, right? The Indian Act is a racist, systemic document, right? And if someone was to attempt to debate that, I would be like, okay, dude, like, time to do some soul searching for yourself, man. Like, the Indian Act is an explicitly racist document that is systemically racist, but we under it because it exists. It's the law of the land. And the only way we could change that is if we change the law. And the only way to do that is to admit that the Indian Act is having systemic issues in the society. But if you deny the existence of systems, if you deny the power of systems and things like systemic racism, then you never need to do that. So you just maintain the status quo, right? And pretend like everything is just about individuals because you're an individualist fundamentalist, which makes you incoherent, which is fundamentally the reason why Peterson cannot debate leftists. He simply can't, right? Because any coherent leftist is going to look at him and be like, you're insane. Like, this is nuts what you're espousing. Because it is. It's nuts what he's espousing. Right? And it's the truest thing that I say over and over again, right? Fundamentalism itself renders you incoherent. And Jordan Peterson is a fundamentalist. He is an individualist fundamentalist, which makes him incoherent. He can't respond rationally to reality. And the people who follow him and espouse him are some of the most dangerous people in the society. And the reason for that is because if you seize power while denying the existence of systems, if you seize control of the systems while denying their existence, by definition, you will destroy them. Right? Like, you can't not. You will destroy the systems that are in place. Because you don't think they exist and they don't matter. Right? That's extremely dangerous. Like, that's extremely dangerous. And this type of fundamentalism you're seeing it writ large in, like, the PPC, for example. Right? Like, the PPC is a political force that exists and they deny the existence of systems. Like, they don't care about systems at all. And so should they seize power, right? Any degree of power, they will be as a, like, chaotic, destructive force. And their solutions are insane. Like, you listen to their solutions and they're literally like, we just need to sell ourselves to capitalists harder. Like, okay, yikes, so much for a working class movement, right? I thought the CIA had shut you down. Nah, it's completely, I think there's a server issue. I think things seem to have evened out now and things seemed okay, but I think it completely was just my IP was shitting itself, basically. Like, that's all it was. Just bad timing, really. Just bad timing. I've avoided JP. I get turned off when his followers try to convert me. Well, the thing that annoys me about his followers is that they constantly say, like, you're misunderstanding him. or like you just need to read more. You just don't understand what he's saying. It's like, yeah, I completely understand what he's saying. He's just incoherent, right? That's why I use the word incoherent, because he is incoherent, and he doesn't. He himself doesn't really understand what he is saying. Like, I think that's something really key to understand about Peterson, that he has made a fatal flaw in the way that he thinks, i.e. he's an individualist fundamentalist. And so when things counteract that, and there are many things that counteract that, right? He doesn't know what to think or say or do. And he comes up with solutions that are, like, ludicrous. And, like, Peterson often gets caught in not thinking things through. Like a really great one, which nobody seems to remember, was he was using the Pareto principle as a justification for wealth inequality. Which is to say, like, the Pareto principle is the idea that in natural systems, like forests, right, there is an energy distribution that seems somewhat related to the idea of wealth inequality in a society, right? So something like 20% of the forest generates 80% of the energy, like that kind of thing, right? And so he would say that and kind of have this kind of scoffing, arrogant thing, the way that Peterson is, right? His scoffing arrogance, although I don't know what he's arrogant about. But he has that kind of scoffing arrogance where he says this sort of thing. So it's in the natural world, so it makes sense that it would appear in humanity. And literally I look at him and I go, hey, Jordan, what's the natural result that occurs in forests if you leave them untended? What happens in nature if you just leave a forest untended by itself and the Pareto principle reaches its conclusion? What happens? Oh, is it a wildfire, bro? Is it a wildfire, bro? Is that what happens in natural systems if you let that kind of inequality exist? Oh, yeah, okay, cool. So by your own admission, we're heading towards a wildfire. Cool, bro. Cool. Yeah, we don't want to groom the forest, right? We don't want to try to prevent that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. We'll just let the wildfire come on through, I guess. Yeah, I used to have a therapist who was a big fan of JP. Like, and again, don't get me wrong, man. Like, when it comes to, like, the small scale, just cheerleaderism, and this is the big reason why I think people are a fan of Peterson's, because when it comes to just, like, you know, buck up, you know, get out there. I'm gonna find an analogy to try, like, lobsters to try and propel you forward and put you into action and put some wind in your sails and get you out there and all that kind of stuff. Fine. Like, I don't mind that there's a voice like Peterson's in the conversation on that kind of a level. Like, it's like Oprah, right? Oprah being like, you can do it. Believe in yourself. Find the energy inside of yourself and manifest your destiny and forward vision and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's fine, right? Like, I'm fine with that kind of cheerleaderism. The issue is when it oversteps, is when it goes into, like, societal critique, right? And, like, just the refusal to admit that there is such a thing as an antagonizing force, right? And that there are, like, if you're a black man living in America, you have a different experience. Like, your experience is different than, like, someone like Peterson, who basically just obeyed his way to the top of a pyramid, right? He just did what he was told and didn't really encounter any pushback because he was obedient the whole time, right? Evening, Eric. How you doing, bud? We're having a tumultuous stream. Looks like we've stabilized, but... All right, that's enough Peterson, man. That's enough Peterson. It's interesting to me that Peterson remains the cultural force that he is. Like, he broke into the mainstream on a lie. He lied about Bill C-16, right? He lied about what the bill was doing. And he breaks into the mainstream based on this lie. And from there, it's just been like... And initially, when I encountered Peterson, I found him kind of useful because I treated him exactly that way. He was just a cheerleader. He was just like, I'm a prairie boy. He's a prairie boy. He was talking a very, like, get in there and get it done, right? Fight harder, right? Push, you can do it, right? And like, I found that useful. But once I started seeing him like talking about Marxists and talking about communism and talking about the society that he lived in meaningful ways, I was like, oh shit, like this guy's a bit Looney Tunes, right? This guy's like way off the mark. Like it literally doesn't make sense what he's saying, right? And I'll happily fight over that, right? I'll fight somebody over that because like you can only pull your bootstraps so high before you fucking hit a ceiling. And it's that denial, right? It's the denial that there are ceilings. Bank of Canada will hike rates this month. JP Morgan. Economists at JP Morgan expect the Bank of Canada will raise its benchmark interest rate at its January 26 meeting, ahead of the central bank's liftoff. Based on rhetoric from the Bank of Canada in December, it was clear that labor market dynamics and outperforming economic data had created heightened concerns at the bank that the output gap was closing more rapidly than expected. Right? What are they planning to see it? Expects to see it raise its rate by 25 basis points to 0.5%. Right? So this is actually like the this is actually the beginning of the end, right? Like gone will be the free money borrowing that corporations can do, right? That the wealth extraction process is reaching its logical conclusion. So eventually it will get to the point where even the banks will not lend money. And this is how you end up with like a total calcification of the system, right? That the political class refuses to tax the wealth away from the billionaire class. The banks refuse to lend money. The whole thing just grinds right down and the gears just... and capitalism dies. This is it. More than anything else, this is it. Like raising the rate at which they lend money. And it does have to happen, given the rules of capital. But like, while most advanced economies are in the middle of an Omicron wave, Canada stands out due to the extent of the restrictions that have been reimposed. Ultimately, there is reason to think the bank faces less immediate pressure to hike than some of its peers. Non-energy and food prices rose at relatively muted pace in October-November, in contrast with the acceleration in the U.S. Unlike in the U.S., wage growth is also still below pre-pandemic rates. He said, yeah, we're toast. The trap of Peterson is once you go beyond the surface stuff that he talks about and you get deeper, it's this, yeah, no, that's exactly it. Like, that's exactly it. Like, I became a communist ultimately because of Jordan Peterson. Because he was trash-talking communists, and I was like, oh, okay, let's take a look. And I did, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is logical. Like, this makes sense. And, like, at the end of the day, Peterson's, like, understanding of communism and these ideas doesn't go any farther than, like, reefer madness propaganda, right? That he himself has been heavily propagandized. And, like his statements on meritocracy alone. Like, meritocracy is such a, like, what a convenient position to take. Like, what a convenient position, right? Like, it's very self-serving ideology. The idea of meritocracy. That I am where I am at because I am the best. It's like, the best at what? Oh, just doing what you're told, right? Like, that's what you're the best at. Like, for those of us who didn't want to do what we were told, who wanted to explore the world for other reasons, you know, like artists, right? People who have ideas, people who don't necessarily want to subserviate themselves to capitalists or to larger systems, right? Like, we get thrown out of the system. No, he has no clue what Marxism is. Well, and even more embarrassingly, Eric, he did a live stream the night before that debate where he outright admitted that he hadn't read the source material. So he literally like read the source material like the night of or the morning of even, and like this is your credible thinker? Like, this is the person that capitalists are putting up against us? Like, it just goes to show you how weak the capitalist class has become. That, like, it's either total clueless people like Peterson, right? People who don't know what they're talking about at all, just completely incoherent, or you end up with, like, legit psychopaths, like legit sociopaths who are, like, going up there and like outright saying we should, like, abandon children to the market, right? Like, it's brilliant. Yeah, but those people are lazy, according to the capitalist simp. Exactly. Yeah, if you don't sell yourself to the capitalist death cult, you're lazy. Yeah, that's the narrative, right? And they don't see it that way because they don't acknowledge the existence of systems. They don't acknowledge, like, these guys still think that capitalism is voluntary, right? Like, that's pretty central to all of it, if you ask me. Which in my view, like, if you get talking to, like, a pro-capitalist, you got to get there pretty quickly. Right? Because very, very central to their ideology is the idea that this is a voluntary system, right? Which it explicitly is not. Like, it's very much not a voluntary system. The system operates on coercion, right? That if you end up not having any money, well, you better sell yourself to a capitalist. And sure, you get to pick which capitalist, as long as they're hiring, right? Like, so you get to pick from the capitalists who are hiring at the moment. And then when you actually, like, observe and analyze the market system itself, you realize that the system itself is owned by a very small group of people, right? Like, and they own each other's stuff. That's the reason we're all supposed to care about the stock market. Because, like, the 5 guys that own the society, right? They own all of the stocks for each other. And so, yeah, they want that line to go up. And like, but again, if you deny the existence of systems, if you don't think systems exist, then you can deny that this exists, right? You can deny that there is a labor market that is owned by the billionaire class, because systems don't exist. It's all just individuals individualizing their individualism, right? Capitalism enforces a certain set of social relations, mainly employment. Yeah. Have you seen the guy who did the 30 experiment where he sent 2 resumes a day and he only got one interview? Yeah, because in order to get the benefits from the government, these places need to pretend like they're actually interested in hiring. But the reality is, like, it's another fucking grift. Do you want to come up, buddy? The grift is very simple. Right? Oh, you're telling me that people will come in and buy my stuff and I've got half the staff, right? So I don't need all the staff. I can have a skeleton crew and just burn them out. And I could just put, like, a poster on my wall, like a little fucking cutout with, like, written in crayon, being like, no one wants to work anymore, right? And the populace will just buy that. Oh, great. So I've cut my labor costs significantly. I get free money from the government, right? And the populace doesn't complain and they come shopping anyway. Brilliant, right? Brilliant. Do I come up, buddy? No? Okay. But you're looking at me with your big brown eyes. And you're saying to me, John, please let me up. Pay attention to me. Well, I got an hour left of live streaming, buddy. I know. Milo doesn't understand what's going on, which makes sense. He's a dog. Yeah, here's a fellow that puts it together, right? Jules Suzdaltsev. America does not have a far left movement. Our far right are fascists. Our center right are extremist nationalists. Our center left are classical conservatives. Our far left are moral centrist moderates. Any objective political compass would place politicians like Sanders or Warren barely left of center. A real far leftist movement would be advocating for forced property seizure by the working class. Instead, our far left is like, don't let people die in medical poverty, please. Nailing it. Like, I mean, I say it all the time, right? Housing crisis issue, for example, right? I was reading just before. Like, even when we are getting articles that are publishing in, like, the National Observer saying, like, the housing crisis needs to end. We have to do something serious about the housing crisis. Well, what's their solution? Their solution is, like, a tax, right? Something like, just like the tacit acknowledge, like, it doesn't matter how much of a tax you put on these houses, right? The people who are buying and speculating on the market are billionaires, right? You could put 100% tax on it. They're still going to buy it because they don't know what to buy. They're out of things to buy, right? And so they're speculating on the housing market. What would a leftist position be? Take the house away from them. Give it to the person with the house. Here is exactly what I would do. Precisely what I would do. I would set up a wicket at a Service Canada, right? We all have Service Canadas here in Canada, right? You go to a Service Canada. It's how you get your driver's license. It's how you get your social insurance card replaced, right? It's how you get your passport. It's how you get all of the documentation that you get from Service Canada, right? It's Service Canada. So you walk in there and you say, "Hello, Service Canada. I do not have a house." And they go, "Aha, go to the wicket that is responsible for distributing housing," right? You walk over to the wicket and you say, "Hello, I do not have a house." And they go, "Aha, please fill out this form." You go, "Very good, I will fill out this form, for I am a Canadian citizen," right? "Here is my social insurance number and all of my information." You give it to the person and they say, "Thank you very much. We will be in contact with you shortly with the information that you have provided." And then they walk on over to the guy with 1,000 houses and they say, "We are taking one of your houses and we are giving it to the person without the house." And then you contact the person who does not have the house and you say, "Here is your new address. We will meet you there with the key, or you can come to the Service Canada to receive the key." And if the person with the 1,000 houses goes, "I don't like that," we say, "Fuck you. Go away." And the conversation's over. Like, that is how easy it would be. Right? It would be very straightforward. "But John, that will collapse the rental market and the housing market." Fine. I don't care. I don't care about you psychopaths. I don't care about your wealth. There are people, Canadian citizens, who are living in hell. Give them houses. Give them houses. I don't care about your portfolio. And if you complain, bitch and whine, I'll say, "Fuck off, you stupid whore." Yeah, didn't think that was going to happen, did you? Without homelessness, we would lose money. Yeah, sounds ghoulish to me. Yep, that's the psychopathic nature of the capitalist death cult. That's why it's a death cult, right? Like, their ideology is not based in reality, right? It is an ideology. Like, neoliberal economics is it's outright an ideology, and it's and that's how you end up with this, like, "But they didn't earn it. They didn't earn it." As if that's a thing. Like, as if that matters at all. Like, literally, I'm starting to say to these people, like, "Oh, they didn't earn it? I don't care." Like, what does that matter at all? Right? The issue is this person does not have a house. We have the power and the ability to give them a house. They are a Canadian citizen.
They have the right to safety and security in the nation as provided by the charter. One assumes that includes housing and food. Right? They don't need to earn these things. They are provided because we are a civil society. Get the fuck away, you vampiric ghouls. I like this musical communist movement. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I need to make communism the musical. Maybe we should give a fuck about each other. Maybe we should give a damn. Right? Like, this is what is so embarrassing about our society. Is that we are not having a conversation about how to distribute resources. Right? We are having a conversation about whether or not we should distribute resources. Like, that's gross. Like, that's absolutely disgusting. Like, people like Milton and Hayek and even Reagan pretended as though they were interested in distributing resources. Right? At least they created some form of argument that was fundamentally rooted in the idea that, yeah, we should distribute resources. Right? Today we are literally debating whether or not we should let people live in the streets or not. Right? That's where we are at as a society. Like, we are in a massive decline because of it. Because if you abandon huge segments of your population, right? Like, in the United States, there's 1 million people homeless, right? The population is what, 200,000 people, 300,000 people, right? So, like, a section of your society can't participate in the economy. They can't be productive. They can't exist in a productive capacity. You're literally hamstringing yourself. Like, your nation is literally worse for this. What do you think's happening? And then countries that are like, yeah, no, we're just not going to have homelessness. We're just not going to have it. Well, they're going to do better. Why? Because more people are able to contribute to their economy. Right? It's the same reason we got rid of debtors' prisons. Right? Like, ultimately, we didn't get rid of debtors' prisons because they're horrible. Right? We got rid of them because incarcerating somebody because they owe a debt means that they will never be able to pay off that debt as a guarantee. Right? You don't actually get your money back by imprisoning someone over a debt. So you get rid of them. Right? And you stop incarcerating people based on the idea of debtors' prisons because it's completely counterintuitive. Well, homelessness operates in exactly the same way. And if all you're going to do is stand around and be like, well, but they didn't earn it. Well, then you're going to say that all the way into the fucking grave, right? You're going to say that all the way into just like the shithole that your society becomes, right? People need it. They gotta earn it. Like this is real. Like, this is actually a thing. Like, it's just a slogan, right? Like, people have to earn, like, stable, like, what? And that implies that, like, the antagonistic struggle that exists in the capitalist society is natural or good. That they've got to earn it. So they've got to fight against an antagonist. And I'm being told, good. That homeless population number fluctuates. And I defer to you completely. And it's just like, I'm just so fucking over this shit. Like, I'm so fucking over this shit. There should be 0 homeless people. Like, people should be able to walk into a building and be like, I would like a house. And we should go, very well then. And that's the entire conversation. Right? That's how they earn it. Right? And like this idiotic concept of earning it. Like, what are you even fucking talking about? Like, it's embarrassing. Earn it. Did you earn being born in America? Did you earn that? Did you earn to like an affluent white family? Did you earn that? How hard did you work to earn that? Right?
And it's interesting how it's always like, yeah, people who are like born into abject poverty, they got to earn it, even though I didn't. Right? Like, it's always like your Shapiro types that say this kind of bullshit. Like, oh yeah, they got to earn it. I mean, I didn't earn it, but they got to earn it. Right? Like, but like, that's what you get for listening to people who think magic is real, so. Majority of Canadians polled support healthcare fines for unvaccinated, survey finds. Just in case you weren't sure that Canadians are dumb, right? Just over 60% of Canadians recently polled are on board with the implementation of fines for the unvaccinated, such as a healthcare tax, similar to the one Quebec Premier François Legault announced on Tuesday. Legault said that adults in Quebec who refuse to be vaccinated against COVID would be forced to pay a significant financial penalty. The fine would be the first of its kind in Canada and apply to unvaccinated residents who don't have a medical exemption. Yeah, they're for sure only going to ever use this legitimately, right? They're only for sure ever going to create healthcare-related fines in legitimate ways, right? They're certainly not going to use this as a way to attempt to privatize the system, right? Right? Canada's conservative establishment is gearing up for another fight over privatizing public health care. Ready or not, here they come. Another debate by further privatizing